Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And this evening we've got John Scandone from the Goshen Ju-Jitsu style based in Newport. And like I said, we're excited to get John on today because, you know, obviously myself and Jackson coming from a Taekwondo background, it's not really our expertise, the Jiu-Jitsu side. So we thought we'd bring on an expert. No pressure, John.
Oh, God, thanks very much for the intro. I can't say I'm an expert, but I'll try and do my best.
What's that saying? In the land of the blind, John, the one-eyed man is the king.
Yeah.
So
One-eyed. Yeah, exactly. One-eyed man is king. Yeah.
That's it. So I'm going to kick off with the first question then, John. So just give us a little bit about your background, you know, where you grew up, schooling, that type of thing. And of course, how you got into martial arts.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it's pretty uninspiring, really. And as a person of a certain age, I grew up with simply in Woking in Surrey with very little or no martial arts involvement or sort of vision, if you like, back in the day. I mean, I'm classic. You know, I grew up with Bruce Lee, you know, back in the early 70s, Enter the Dragon, you know, David Carradine with the Kung Fu TV series, you know, the first time round. Yeah. So really it was like, you know, you're brought up with this sort of thing, watching it on TV, you know, classic dad, 4 o'clock, Saturday afternoon, World of Sport, you know, there we are, you know, Big Daddy, Giant Haystack, you know, Kendo Nakasaki, you know, all the traditional guys from back in the day. And so really in terms of martial arts, you know, it was pretty uninspiring. You know, it was like you'd see these sort of things on TV and you sort of like you take yourself off down to the library, you try and find a martial arts section in the sports section of the library and really sort of like just try and, you know, mimic the guys you used to see on TV once a week, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It was fairly limited back then as well.
Very, very. I mean, if you look at what you're doing now and see what you can pick up now on, you know, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it might be, you know, whatever social media area you're looking into, you're going to pick up things on martial arts, you know, and it varies, you know. Back then, it was so limited. And
I think you had one or two magazines, and that was
that's right, yeah. And exactly, if you wanted to buy anything, you had to go to a magazine, you know, or to a newspaper or something like that, you know, or you knew a friend of a friend who might be able to get you a gi, you know. And it was really very, very minimal.
I mean, you basically fall into a martial art purely by look, don't you? Because basically, exactly. You know, and these days people have got the, you know, they've got the internet. They can look, they can research, they can say, you know what, you know, I'm this type of build. I think this martial art might suit me better, or I want to be a good kicker, so I'm going to go down the Taekwondo route. Or I'm going to be a ground guy, so I'm going to do Jiu-Jitsu. Where for us, it was just like you walk to your local community center. What was on a Tuesday night, and that was what you joined.
That's right. Exactly. It was either boxing, karate, you know, like I say, with Kung Fu, which was really big back in those early 70s, you know. You'd never find a kung fu dojo or, you know, somebody doing kung fu. So really sort of like I was looking for stuff then, and I was quite fortunate. I grew up. I'm fully fledged. Both my parents are Italian, and it just happened to be that in the Italian community there was this one guy that was doing karate, and like, you know, like most sort of like, you know, guys in that sort of from that background, we tend to, you know, especially when you're sort of, you know, you're new into an area, or you're sort of like you've come from a different country, you tend to group and stay with people that you know.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So really, for a short while, I started doing karate, sort of like around the age of 13, 14, with my friends. I had 2 younger brothers. Some brothers came along, and they started. And really, this guy called Phil Artuza, who still actually runs Woking Karate Club, really sort of, took us on board and sort of like gave us a little bit of, threw a gi on us, a hand-me-down kind of gi. We threw on a belt, and we, had a number of lessons with him, and, really sort of like started to enjoy it. But like most youngsters, girls came along, football came along, and that was it. That up until, like I said, about 1975, 76, that was it. My martial arts career was over and done with. Right. I moved on, and really didn't come back to martial arts until I moved to Wales, settled down in a town called Carradine.
Okay, wow, that used to be our holidays. Carnarvon Castle, is it Carnarvon Castle?
No, Carmarthen, not Carnarvon.
Carmarthen, not okay,
Carmarthen,
right, okay.
Sorry, in West Wales, yeah, sorry. And really sort of like settled down there, and football career sort of like came to a bit of an end, and I sort of like, well, I really like the sort of like the competitive stuff, and I sort of thought, well, just need to go and have a look around, see what there is, see who's about. Looked at karate again, thought about going back to karate, looked at Muay Thai, and then sort of like just happened to see this little poster at the local leisure centre, which was Goshin Jiu-Jitsu. And I thought, I'd heard about, UFC, Jiu-Jitsu. I've never really been into that kind of scene, but, there's these couple of little things sparked together in my head. And I thought, well, I'll go along. It's Wednesday evening. I'll go along. I'll just go and see what this Jiu-Jitsu stuff is all about. And popped along on a Wednesday night, and met my instructor then, Sensei Billy Doak, and really loved it. He made me. I mean, he was a larger than life character. He welcomed me in. He put me with 2 green belts, Steve Butcher and Wayne Davis, 2 of the biggest guys you'll ever see. And I don't mean potbelly guys. I mean, Steve Butcher was he was a scaffolder,
right?
And
so big units, then a couple of big
units, yeah. And Wayne was he still is a roofer, so big guys. And he just basically threw me in at the deep end. There's no, like as I do now, no starters class, no intermediate class. You either like it or you love it, or you like it or you lump it, kind of thing. You're in the deep end.
Yeah, sorted the men out from the boys on day one, right?
Well, exactly, yeah, exactly, and that was it really. And I that was about 1997 that I moved and joined the class, and really stayed with him and his style, with no actual interest whatsoever to go off and do anything else. Right. And yeah, I mean, basically, stayed with that, stayed doing the Goshin, and now from that, basically, I've tried to keep his tradition alive. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2009. He got taken pretty ill very, very quickly and passed away. After 2009, I really lost my way. I sort of like wasn't interested anymore, and gave up jiu-jitsu completely.
Okay, so just hold you there 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
So you mentioned you gave up your football career. So what sort of standard did you used to play football?
Well, I played sort of like almost got into sort of like semi-professional kind of environment. Played quite a reasonable league, but I've always been competitive. So I've always, I'd train Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, have a game on a Friday, game on a Saturday afternoon, play with my mates on a Sunday morning, kind of thing. So always sort of, in the local leagues, local Ishmael leagues and stuff like that. So next route up would be sort of like, semi-professional kind of stuff. So, always, in that sort of like, competitive, always looking to strive and have that sort of like competitive edge over my football kind of thing.
No, very, very similar to myself. So most of my career, I played, or childhood, I did martial arts. And then when I joined the forces, I didn't have martial arts in the armed forces at the time. It wasn't a recognised sport. So I picked up rugby. And then as soon as 32, I was exactly 32, started getting too old to play twice a week and train twice a week. It was just becoming a bit more painful. So that's when I picked up the martial arts, which actually, it fulfilled that need for that routine and discipline in some form of training. Activity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that was it. Maybe I don't. You always want to see your childhood sort of like those, summers of '96, sort of like really long hot summers, out with your mates and stuff like that. But back in those days, like it is now, for some kids, it's tough, Yeah. And I'm not saying I had an easy upbringing, but I can't, I don't look back with any form of disdain or anything. It was, my parents did the best they possibly could. And you are, you are what you are at the end of the day. And in terms of mentoring and sort of like somebody you could look up to, when I went into Billy's first class, it was like an almost like we were about the same sort of age back then, in terms of I think he was a year younger than me. So we had the same kind of upbringing and same background, and we remembered the same sort of stuff in our childhood and that sort of thing. So there was almost an instant sort of like, match there. And that's why, we ended up staying with him. And from there as well, I used to train relentlessly. I was there. He had classes all over Carmarthenshire, and I used to go to as many classes as I possibly could. And I was training maybe 4 or 5 times a week. He had I was really, really disappointed. He used to have a Saturday off, because obviously you run all these classes for like 6 days a week, kind of thing, And yeah, I used to do Sunday, Monday classes, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Whenever I could get on the mat, I was on the mat. Basically,
that's the thing with martial arts. Though, it's such an addiction, isn't it?
It is.
When you get into it. I know. I mean, I've never even tried Ju-Jitsu. It's something I've certainly never touched on. But I do know a lot of people that do it, and they just say, it is so addictive. Get in, and the locks and the moves, and it looks, when you watch people experience people do it, it looks so simple, doesn't it?
It does,
but
yeah.
To get to that level, the amount of pain and the amount of sweat and the amount of, toil you had to go through to get that. I suppose it's like kicking in a way, though. It's like the best.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
the best kickers. Look at the best. You go to a competition to see these guys doing these high kicks, and as a novice, you might look and think, wow, I'm never going to be able to do that. But it just takes years and dedication.
Yeah, I mean, Billy used to say, you don't really start learning until you've got your first dan.
Yeah.
And up to that point, it might sound a bit of a cliche, but yeah, up until that point, he could take people and say, yeah, this guy can sort of like hold his own. He used to run the doors in Carmarthen. He was a sort of like, I've been there, done it, got the badges. He was well known in the area. He was well known in the UK. He was well known. He'd done a lot of judo in his early days. He was the only. There was a judo club in Clefley, which was run by a sensei, Stedman Davis, MBE, who really introduced him to jiu-jitsu, but to Japanese jiu-jitsu. Okay. And he was the only student that was actually taught by Stedman Davis the art of jiu-jitsu. Right. And that was after many, many, many years of sort of like, moaning and groaning at him, saying, I heard you do this jiu-jitsu, teach me. And Stedman Stedman Davis, he learned his jiu-jitsu from his time in the army, being out in the Far East, being posted out in the Far East. He went through Korea and Japan and China and places like that, and brought this style back with him. And everything that we did in jiu-jitsu back then, as we do now, we do it all in Japanese. So we don't try to, alter it in any way, shape or form in terms of, making it easier, if you like, to sort of like, Western standards in terms of the techniques and so forth. So everything's in Japanese. The gradings are all in Japanese. So it's as close to Billy Doak's purist way of teaching. And I'm just keeping that legacy, if you like, going the best I possibly can.
It's been hard this year though, right? To keep that going?
Been very, very hard.
How have you coped? I know a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys have had to bring in striking and kicking to their syllabus purely to keep going through the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I because our form is striking, kicking, grappling, wrist locks, arm locks, leg locks, ankle locks, toe locks, everything. It's difficult. You can't show, you can do a snap punch or, a maigiri or moashigiri and stuff like that. But at some point, you're going to have some physical contact, Sure, So it's been hard. It's been hard. And we've stayed away from Zoom because it just doesn't go well with Zoom. People and the people that come, our style is very much a hard style. And Billy Doak, his style was very much a hard style of jiu-jitsu. It wasn't, you're slamming people in the mat, you're putting leg locks and wrist locks on just before the wrist lock or, comes on kind of things. So it's a very hard style. And you can't train that on Zoom.
No. It's one of the things, I suppose, for your style, you've had no choice, have you? You're almost better off saying, look, we're not doing it. Come back when we're doing it properly.
Exactly, yeah.
Than to try to, I don't know, try to teach something that's not really your style, really.
Yeah. And that's the worst. That would have been the worst. That would have been the worst thing that we could have. That's the worst thing that we could have done, really. And I feel sorry for a lot of styles that have gone out of business. I don't run my club as a business per se. As long as I can meet my mat fees. Sure. Then I'm more than happy. I like the training as well, the training element. Sorry, John.
That goes back to your earlier point. You mentioned that you joined your club and it was your instructor that really infused you. What about in terms of the art? What did you really take to? What was it that was feeding that desire to continue?
I think I liked all elements of it. The fact that it was I don't know whether it was that I like to say you played rugby. I didn't play rugby. Okay, I played sort of like my football in the sort of the 70s, 80s when. You could tackle people,
Sure, yeah. You're allowed to touch someone without getting a foul.
Exactly, and following Chelsea with the hatchet man Harris, and that sort of stuff, those sort of guys playing football. I always liked that competitive edge. I was never one for sort of like, medals, and I wasn't one for sort of like, competing in terms of, gaining notoriety through sort of like, being the world champion in that such and such an association or, but I did like that competitive physicality, which is what I got with the style that we train, but also because it incorporated punching, because it also incorporated the kicking elements. It was, the new stuff to me was the wrist locks, the locks, the leg locks, the ankle locks and that sort of thing. But it was just that physicality really, and getting up and close and which, in terms of self-defense was quite important, because Billy, obviously, you know, the style that we have is a self-defense style. So we're not necessarily doing rounds of boxing or sparring or spending hours and hours on kicking. But we do understand that at some point you might get punched, or at some point you might get kicked, or you might find yourself on the floor. And finding yourself on the floor and getting yourself back up is one element. Finding yourself on the floor, you know, with a sort of like, you know, a 300-pound guy on top of you, you know, you're trying to move and trying to get your way out of a sort of very sticky situation, multiple attackers maybe, you know. Billy's philosophy was, you know, never go on the floor, you know. If you're on the floor, get yourself back up, get yourself on the, you know, get yourself on your feet. And yes, and really that was it. You know, we practice throwing. Most important element is the transition, you know, because a lot of people, you know, they throw a person maybe or take somebody to ground and, you know, then that's it, you know, but it's the transition element that's really an important bit to us. So keeping that person under control, making sure that you know where their body is in relationship to your body, etc. And really that physicality, again, just going back to the physicality of it, really.
Okay. So just talk us through the grading process. How does that work in your art?
Yeah, well, we very much follow sort of like it's the judo element. Okay. So we do everything from basically almost like the judo syllabus, but with a certain element of the grading given up to wrist locks, you know, sort of nikajo, ikajo, sankajo, those sort of things, and then sort of like, you know, self-defense, self-defense element. So you could be kicked, you know, somebody could be coming in with a roundhouse punch, you know, and you throw them in ippon sianag, or you throw them in ogoshi or tai tosh, you know. So a lot of that, you know, so there's a mixture of the judo element of it, which is obviously where a lot of it, you know, Ju-Jitsu went to judo, went to, you know, et cetera. And so, you know, that's really how our syllabus is set up. So we'll do sort of like the 63 throws, if you like, and then mix that in with realistic self-defense scenarios, if you like. So if there's a multiple attack, you know,
and is it a time-based grading type syllabus, or is it a capability? Understanding moving the next move, the next throws, the next locks.
Yeah, everything's obviously everything's split down. So we have a grading system which is yellow belts, green belts, blue belts, purple belts, etc. Yeah. And within each belt grading element, you have a certain amount of throws that you have to know, a certain amount of Japanese terminology that you have to know. There's a certain amount of groundwork, kicking, punching, etc. And really then, you know, it's really down to, I look at it the same way as my sensei looked at me and did it on the ability of the person, really. You know, you can't have, you know, you look at one person that might come once a week, and then you have one person that comes 4 times a week. But the person that comes 4 times a week, the reason why he's coming 4 times a week is because he can't get hold of the techniques as well as the person that might come 1 time a week. You know, so there, you know, you have to, with students, it has to be a sort of like a fine balance, really. And I just look at it in simpler, you know, I'm not into, let's do a 6-month grading, you know, do a grading every 6 months. If I feel that the person is worthy, if you like, or is has shown as enough character and, you know, ability, then I'll put them forward for their gradings. But if it takes a little bit longer with people, then I'll wait a little bit longer with people.
Who's your sort of ideal student avatar, if you like? Is it a sort of person? Do you get a lot of kids that join Jiu-Jitsu, or is it mainly sort of men? You know, men that were maybe wanting to get into MMA, maybe, or people that want to they want to learn the jiu-jitsu for that element, or is it people that just want to come and learn jiu-jitsu purely for the art?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture. It's a mixture. I don't have a kids class.
Okay.
Because I've never really been into that, if that makes sense. I don't, it's not something that's really interested me in terms, because the style is quite a hard style. It's very difficult to soften it up for kids, because eventually, you know, the kids are going to have to throw in ippons, you know, you're going to have to throw, or they're going to have to put a leg lock on, or, you know, and it becomes a bit difficult with kids, you know, because you have some kids that are obviously quite sensible, and you got other kids that maybe like adults, you know,
less sensible.
Yeah, you get some adults that are just plain crazy. But so I've never really sort of like ventured down the kids area.
Ladies, do you get quite a ladies in?
We do, actually. We do. We've had a really good group of ladies have come in, but then just left for, you know, whatever reasons they've left, they've gone. And it's not because I put them with guys and train with guys. They, you know, the ladies that have been with me have been incredible martial artists, and have been able to hold their own with the men, and have never shied away. They've never said, oh, you know, I don't want to train with a man. They've always, you know, thrown themselves 100% into it. And I've been really blessed, if you like, to have ladies that will do that. But they're a certain kind of lady, you know, they like that martial arts, you know, they also have that competitive edge, you know, and it's been really, it was really nice to be part of their journey. But, you know, not one of them has left because, you know, I don't like training with men. I don't like the style's too hard for me. It's not like, you know, boxer size, you know, or I did a 6 weeks self-defense class with, you know, a bunch of other ladies, and it was great kind of thing, you know. No one's ever left for that reason. And, you know, I never, along with never doing training with kids, even though I have a few kids, but they come along with their dads. I don't do, you know, seminars in terms of trying to teach ladies self-defense over a 6 week, 12 week, couple of months period kind of thing, because for me, the same way as Billy's philosophy was, you know, it's not like that, you know, the real life is not like that, you know.
It's interesting you say that, because I did I think it was an 8 week ladies self-defense sort of block session for once, and the first thing that I sort of said to them was, look, you know, it's like everything, you know, this is purely just a guide. It's a guide. It's to give you a couple of tools. But my worry always was that people are going to leave too maybe overconfident, if you like, thinking that they can take on the world because they know how to do a palm strike to someone's nose, or they know how to kick someone in the nuts.
Exactly.
You know
yeah.
I mean,
That's it.
It's so dangerous, isn't it? You know, you see some of these courses, and they claim to teach this and this. You know, I always put it down a bit like, you know, when you do your first aid course, don't you? And you leave that first aid course thinking, oh, great, I know what to do.
Was that 50 or 55 compressions? I can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then 2 weeks down the line,
now, is it?
2 weeks down the line, you've forgotten it, haven't you? You know,
exactly.
and you think to yourself, geez, if actually somebody did fall over in the street, will I remember?
Yeah. But that's martial arts in an egg cup, isn't it? Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, you want to train it, but you hope to never ever have to use it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the kind of thing that I sort of like try to install in the guys, is that, you know, I might be able to teach you sort of like, you know, flying arm bars and flying triangles, and, you know, I can do all this acrobatic stuff and show you all this acrobatic stuff, but you're never going to use it in a car park scenario. You're never going to use it down a dirty alleyway. You know, you're never going to use that kind of thing, because if I'm teaching you correctly, you'll never find yourself in that car park. You'll never find yourself in that alleyway, you know? And
it's more than just the application, isn't it? It's the awareness.
Exactly. Yeah. And and then, you know, like I said, you know, my class is mainly made up of adult males, and they come from all different backgrounds, all different, some have martial arts backgrounds. I have guys that come along that are, second, third, fourth dan judo, and just want to do the elements that have been stripped out of judo. Yeah, they've been stripped out of judo. So they're basically looking to sort of like, extend their journey, if you like. And right through to guys that have been signed off on the sick in some way, shape or form by their doctors, but their doctors have said, you've got to do some kind of, exercise. And they've come along and they've informed me of their medical conditions, etc., etc. And, when you think to yourself, when they come along to you and they give you their medical file and it's that thick, and you look at it and go, you really want to do our style of jiu-jitsu? and literally, I'm not joking. There's one guy turned up and he's still training with me. I've got him up to purple belt now, and he's still training and he loves it. And he said, "Look, John," he said, "here's my, you want me to sign up, etc., etc." Goes, "This is my medical record." And added all these X-rays, he's broken bones, and this, that, and the other. Gray's Anatomy would be, would love him because he's just had every ailment you can think of, and he's there, he's still, and he loves it, and it's, over the last year and a bit when we've been closed down, we've sort of like, we've tried to maintain an interest in the jiu-jitsu with the guys, and they've all, hopefully they'll all come back and they'll all, train again, and we'll be in a much better place in a couple of months' time, and things will rock along.
Yeah. So have you found there's been any linkage with your professional career with your jiu-jitsu, or have you kept them completely separate?
Well, yeah. I'm on the sort of like the down slope, if you want to call it a down slope. Right. I had a very, very stressful job, and I was like, I was basically sort of like out and about. I was a international sales manager for medical.
Fantastic. We're both sales managers.
International sales manager for a medical company, and I spent a lot of time out of the country.
Hotel. So it normally goes taxi, airport, taxi,
hotel,
meeting, taxi, airport, hotel, home.
Exactly. Yeah. And when people say, "Oh, you get to go to all these wonderful places and see all these wonderful things," and I was like, "Yeah, I just have, I'm jet lagged after sort of like 5-6 hours or 13 hours to Japan or whatever, and all I want to do is sleep, and the guys from the Japanese company are sort of like you sign in at 2 p.m. and they're knocking on your door at 3. Come out.
You ready for a day's meeting and briefing?
Yeah. So, but I mean, I suppose it's quite interesting. I suppose, I suspect the martial arts did help me in that respect, because it when you're doing martial arts, it's not just a case, like you say, you're not just learning about the techniques, but you're building up a stamina of fortitude, if you like, in terms of a mental stability. Yes. And I think that's one of the takeaways that I probably can take away from my martial arts career is that sort of like strength of mental agility, if you like. And really sort of like crossing over, being quite calm in sort of like very sort of like aggressive meetings.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. I'm sure.
Yeah. And being able to look at sort of like, lots of different aspects of somebody will show you a technique, for example, the same way as somebody might show you a business deal. Mm-hmm. And you're taking that martial art technique and you're breaking it down
and analyzing
analyzing it. Yeah. And that's what you were doing, and that's what I found myself doing in my business environment, and when you're sort of like, you sat there and you're sort of like, you're trying to work your way through a business contract in sort of like, and it's not your first language, it's not their first language, you're trying to translate it into English. And so it sort of like helps you it helped me in that respect quite quite.
And I can imagine,
evidently,
doing jiu-jitsu, and if you've been over to Japan, you've been working in Asia, so it's quite a good segue into some meetings.
It is, yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I've done, I mean, it's great. You got to visit sort of like, a lot of Tokyo. Got to visit the Kodokan, and and see how they train over there, and and I've been quite fortunate. I've been to Brazil. I've done some Brazilian jiu-jitsu out there, even though they were more interested in my self-defense jiu-jitsu than the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a great, it's a great sort of, I mean, I had to be careful in Japan because jiu-jitsu obviously in Japan was obviously seen as a sort of like a lesser art, if you like, in terms of judo. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, it's a great way of sort of like introducing yourself and breaking the ice, if you like.
Finally, sometimes, I mean, I remember I went over to Korea with the Taekwondo, and I ended up doing some work with the UN, with the Korean contingency. And in the morning, I was in my porter cabin somewhere in the Middle East, and I could hear "Hana, do." I thought, they're only doing Taekwondo, right?
Yeah.
I've got a conversation starter straight away.
Already, yeah.
And I think I've just done my third dance, so my terminology was spot on. So I got into the camp, and I met it was courtesy to go and meet the key colonel there. And he says, hello, Jackson. He's spoke really good English coming from America, as well as career educated in America. He says, so do you know much about my country? I said, oh, yeah, I know quite a lot. Yeah. He says, so what do you know? I said, well, I know Dangun.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me with a strange look. He said, what do you mean you know Dang? I said, yeah, he's the legendary founder of Korea. And he I can't remember the year off the top of my head, 333 BC.
No, 233 BC.
233 BC. Yeah, it's been a year. Yeah, it's been a hard year. And he's like, oh my God. So then he calls in two of his majors. He says, come in, sit down. And so we started talking. I said, I know a poem. Yeah, his poem. And they were just amazed that I knew all this culture from Korea. And that was it. Got on. I still keep in contact with him now. That's probably 15 years ago. So it just gives you that great segue in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic. And you find a common ground, and that helps a lot, especially in a business situation.
Yes. Yeah. It's just you need something not just to focus on the business. I remember Gavin was telling me once you went to go and do a survey. They were selling some support for lifts, weren't you, mate?
Yeah.
And they went into the building, saw the building owner, and he's only an ex-Taekwondo guy.
Oh, right.
That's it. The thing is that sometimes, the thing is, it's again, it just comes to in martial arts in general, isn't it? The amount of time. I say this to my students. I said, look, if you could get your black belt, if you work hard and get your black belt, but even if you never stick with it, that day might come where you sit down for an interview and the guy looks through you and he goes, oh, black belt, Taekwondo. And straight away, how many people, I mean, you'll know this as well. How many people walk into your dojo and say, oh, I used to do that. I used to do, and it's like, you think how many people have started martial arts and not continued. And
true.
And so you might have a guy sat in front of you who could be a boss, he could be a black belt himself, or he could have put his kids into martial arts, or he could have tried it himself. And straight away, it's a conversation.
Yeah, sure.
And it also shows that you've got resilience. It shows that you could stick at something for a long enough time to reach your black belt, which again is a great trait when you're employing somebody, isn't it? They're not a fly-by-night and then going to be off. Sure. So, and I know I have read recently that even people like Google and Amazon and a lot of these big sort of corporates, they look for people that are in sports now. They look for professional, high-level sports people in all sorts of disciplines because they know that those type of people have got that resilience. They can take it.
They've got that range of raw skills that you can then take that application, their mental application, and then apply a new skill set to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a dedication, isn't it? Because that journey is it's not an easy journey to get from that white belt to that black belt.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, like you say, a lot of people do fall by the wayside, but those people that do stick it out, they have that resilience in them, inbuilt. They might not know it.
No, of course you don't. That's the great thing with each grade, isn't it? it's a step, and it's that next step up the mountain, the next step.
That's
and before
right.
you know it, you look down and you realize you're almost at the peak, and then you look up and there's another summit.
And it's another step there. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And it's, you know, and the thing is you get to, you also get to meet a lot of interesting people, you know. In my journey, you know, I've, you know, through Billy, you know, I've met lots of interesting people, you know, obviously people like Gus, you know, Neil Adams, you know, Trevor Roberts, you know.
We had Neil Adams on the podcast actually last year.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you know, that, you know, it opens you up to a lot of different, you know, I've trained with Hoist Gracie, you know, I've done a little bit of BJJ and stuff like that, you know, and you know, a lot of people just go, oh yeah, I see him on the TV, but you know, through martial arts, you've met these guys, you know, and these guys are, you know, legends, you know, and you know, the nicest of people that you could ever meet, you know, and that's
normally very
great.
humble,
very humble,
accommodating. You know, they want to share their knowledge with you. If you show an interest in them.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you know, and you know, I've, you know, try to get up to Bolton and sort of like, you know, train with Trevor if I can, you know, and it's, you know, those sort of, you know, guys, you know, also, you know, there's the arts of like Aikido and stuff like that, you know, with Gwyn Jones, you know, Gwyn Jones was very much, you know, we trained with Gwyn Jones in his dojo with Billy Dope, stuff like that. And it was, you know, it was great, you know.
So going forward then, John, what sort of, obviously you're teaching, you know, you teach part-time, do you? Obviously it's not a full-time.
Exactly. Yeah.
For you. So are you looking at transitioning more into full-time stuff, or are you going to start taking a step back? How are you looking at moving forward?
I mean, at the moment we're fortunately we rent some space off Master Gary Gastor Taekwondo at the Martial Arts Centre in Newport. Very thankful to him, obviously, because he's accommodated us. Really, you know, gone out of his way. Him and his family have gone out of his way to accommodate us. And really, I mean, if I could do it a little bit, you know, I could increase the class sizes and things, then great. But you know, like I said, you know, like nowadays, there's so much choice. You know, for people, and I mean, people have said, you know, as we said before, you know, people have said, well, why don't you go, you know, get kids along, you know, and you know, you have that sort of like that funnel, if you like, you know, classic sales funnel, if you want.
Sure. We talk a lot about those, don't we?
All the you know, a lot of leaking and stuff, but you know, at the end of the day, you might get sort of like 4, 5, 6 students to stay with you for a period of time and stuff. Maybe it's something I might venture down going forward, you know. But once we've come out of lockdown, I think, you know, fully come out of lockdown, I'll sort of like look at it and maybe sort of like give it another full stab, if you like. But really, it's, you know, but today it's tough, you know, because you're competing against a lot of people, you know, a lot of different styles.
And let's not forget, now you're competing even more. I mean, you always was, but even now you're competing against the virtual stuff.
Well, exactly.
Well. I mean, you look at the Gracie Academy that they sell. I mean, they make millions and millions of pounds a year, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but I understand you can get to your black belt virtually, can't you?
I know.
Never having to even, you know, step into a dojang, you know.
Yeah, not just the martial arts. You're also up against other sports, because all the sports are much more they're just as well structured now. So your cricket, your football, your swimming, and you know, we run kids classes, and the challenge that we have is, little Johnny, he's busy 5 nights a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I move his cubs around, or his scouts, or his tennis, or his football, or his rugby? You know, the kids have a busy schedule.
I know. I mean, I had the same. You know, my girls both got up to their green belts in Ju-Jitsu, but then gymnastics came along. You know,
3 or 4 nights a week,
and they could throw on, you know, why would they want to throw on a smelly gi when they could throw on a really nice sparkly leotard, you know, have their hair done, you know, and play, you know, and do rather than coming along and having to grapple with a boy, I'm doing gymnastics with other girls
and not have dad shout at them.
Exactly. Or them beating up on their dad, you know. But it's hard for martial arts nowadays, I think, like we said, back in the day, back in the 70s, like I said, I struggled to find a kung fu school, or a karate school. Now, I can open up the Yellow Pages, showing my age there. I could
Yellow Pages.
You know what, Kate? You and me both. I said to my daughter the other day, "Can you get the Yellow Pages out and go and find us some painter?" And she just laughed at me. She said, "Dad, it's Yal or Google now."
Yellow Pages.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but it's great. It used to be great if you had left something at the top of the cupboard in the kitchen, though, isn't it? You just couldn't quite reach it. It was that thick.
But that's it. But you can do that now. You can do something different. If you want to do wrestling on a Monday night, you want to do, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the Tuesday, you want to do, self-defense or boxing or MMA. You could, every day of the week you could do something different.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's a challenge. It's I suppose a curse as well as a, what's the word I'm looking for? A curse as well as a good thing, I suppose, really.
Positive,
Because it's like when obviously when we were growing up, we used to have 4 channels, didn't you? BBC One, ITV, Channel 4 came later on, right?
Yeah.
And basically whatever was on, you just watched it because that's all right. You had, right? And you enjoyed it, and you sat there and you watched it. Where now you've got your Sky, and your Netflix, and you could spend an hour looking for what you're going to watch in the next hour. You can't go. You say, I've got an hour to sit down before I go to bed. Right, I'm going to find something to watch, and you spend. Yeah. By the time you've actually found something, you've got 15 minutes to watch it, then you fall asleep. Right? And I think if you're not careful, it could be like that as well. Oh, I've done a bit of Taekwondo. I enjoyed that, but no, it's maybe not for me. I'm going to have a look at Ju-Jitsu now. Oh yeah, no, yeah, I liked it. I'm going to do karate next, and before you know it, they're flitted around all these martial arts, and they've become again the master of none, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like looking at a vending machine, isn't it, and deciding on what you want to buy, kind of thing. You have your money. And you basically take your choice. I've never, like I said, in my martial arts career and how I teach today is really how I was taught. And I haven't I haven't sort of like softened it in any way, shape, or form. I teach as I was taught, and it is for some people, and it's not for other people.
Others, yeah.
I
think not being a full-time instructor, you can afford to do that as well. Okay,
I think you're right. Yeah,
that's the difference. If you've got to make a living from it, you've got to adapt your style for the world that we live in now, I suppose.
Well, you're adapting your product range, aren't you? You've got to try and cater for the widest audience. So you do your kids' classes, you do your more watered down version, and then you have your hardcore version at the top end.
Exactly.
And it's challenging getting the systems in place to migrate people to do that. And then do it.
Don't get me wrong. Like I said, the likes of Gary Gassor and Gus and stuff like that, who are running full time, dojos, etc. Hats off to them. Because it's you guys, hats off to you. I go along, I train. I enjoy training. I enjoy passing my knowledge on, but at the end of the day, I'm not having to worry about the electricity bill. I'm not having to worry about the water bill. I'm not having to, I'm not having to worry about all these things that you guys have had to worry about, this last year and a half.
Not me. I'm a part-time man. I'm still part-time. Well, I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? And I thought, well, I've got a guy here who's doing all his classes on Zoom. I'll just let him take my classes for a year.
That'll be me.
Bless you.
There you go.
Did a good job as well, didn't you, mate?
Yeah, looked after your students for a year.
Yeah, it's ideal. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, and it's been tough, and I'm sure going forward it's going to be tough as well. Because a lot of people, mixing again, with people in a dojo, in a sweaty environment, etc. It's going to be hard.
I was talking to someone about this last night. We were quite privileged last night. We went out to a bit of a first meal with lots of instructors, and there's still that fear. People still have that fear because a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that haven't been out of their house for a year.
Exactly.
So just going for a walk is intimidating, and they're anxious from that. So I think it'll take a bit of time, but humans are resilient, aren't we? And we adapt very quickly to our environments.
Yeah, exactly. And we're sociable. You know, we're sociable creatures. You know, we have to have that social interaction, whether it's choking one of your partners out or whether it's going down the pub for a beer. You know, we've got to have that.
At the same time. You can do it the same, especially after 10 pints of Guinness.
That might be a new style, actually. Yeah. Come along, have 10 pints of Guinness and choke you out.
Drunken rear naked chokes, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a night out in Wetherspoons anyway, so that's fine for us. It's across the road from us anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think people will start coming back, and it will be, you know, I think it will be, you know, whether it gets back to how it was pre-pandemic, I'm not sure. But
you know, I've got a feeling it could be better because people are more conscious, conscious now, aren't they? So, you know, there's a train of thought that says it could be better.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
Through these challenging times, then, John, what's kept you motivated over this past year?
The missus not wanting me in the house. Keeps washing my gi.
Yeah, that's always a motivation, right?
It is always a motivation. It's a good question. I think it's just being sort of like bloody minded, really, wanting to get back onto the mat, seeing that there is light at the end of the tunnel, despite everything that's been going on. Yeah. You know, I'm always a sort of like a half full rather than half empty kind of guy.
You've got to be if you're in any sort of business development. You've got to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's really sort of like it's just really sort of like knowing or feeling that there has to be something there. You know, it's almost like you know you started this journey. You just don't. People will tell you, you know, you're on a journey, okay, and you can sort of like put a marker in the sand and say, right, okay, that I know where I started my journey, but no one is ever going to tell you where you're going to end your journey because you just don't know when that journey is going to end. And I think that's it. I think for me, my journey hasn't ended, and so that's the thing that keeps me going. You know,
progress, isn't it? It's progress.
Exactly. Yeah. Every day is every day. I keep saying every day is a school day, as they say. You know, and it really is. You know, and every time, you know, the guys will, you know, when I'm in the dojo, and what we doing tonight, Sensei. I really say to them, so I really don't know. You know, we'll you know, I'll see. We'll do the warm up.
See who turns up. See how everyone's reacting.
Yeah, something will come up, you know, and a lot of them take the mickey out of me because I'm always looking up at the ceiling, you know, and they all go, "Oh, that's where I've got my class written," you know. But yeah, it really is, you know. I'm not, you know, I'm always sort of like looking at sort of like, you know, really, they say that is progressing, you know, and growing, not only as a person, as a martial artist, as a teacher, as a coach, you know, whatever it might be, you know, and that's the same as in business. You know, in business, you don't do business just by yourself. You know, you're part of a business in the team, whether it be the guy in the stock room or the managing director. At the end of the day, you are a team, and that's really, you know, in terms of the martial arts and having a group of people. I see it no different having that group of people in a martial arts class as a group of people in a company. Yeah, you know, all the elements, you know, of all the same. You know, you have your shrinking flower, or your flower, and you know, your plant in the corner, and you've got your rising stars, and you've got, you know, these guys that will just plod along. You know, that's the same in martial arts.
Always have your village idiot that comes in as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. A few too many of those.
Well,
in my
you've
class,
done all right, Gav, to be fair. You've grown out of that role now, haven't you?
And you've got that. You know, there's the same principle in you know, you can see the crossover from martial arts into business quite easily, you know.
And certainly in any sort of leadership position as an instructor, you know, you mentioned, I think you railed off about 4 key elements: coach, mentor.
Yeah,
you are everything. You're not just the sensei. You're not just teaching them the physical side. It's the mental side. You're almost the social worker sometimes.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I think that's with all sorts of challenges, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's, you know, that's a good point. You know, there are, you know, big thing. You know, I work in an area of mental health at the moment, you know, in terms of medical devices and so forth. But, you know, I always go back to sort of like a story I had in my very, very early days of a psychiatrist. I think I was in Sweden or something. And a psychiatrist came up to me and I said, you know, you can treat people with psychiatric problems, you know, with this equipment. And he said, look, he said, I'll take it on board. And he said, I'll use it. He said, and as far as I'm concerned, as long as I can save one person from maybe jumping off a building and killing themselves, then I would have thought I'd feel that my task has been done, you know. And it's the same, you know. And I always remember that conversation I had with the guy. And it's the same. And it's the same with business, and it's the same in martial arts. You know, if you can take, you know, help one person out,
yeah,
you know, you might have a class 200, 300 people, but if you can help one person, then you know your job's done, really.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the little things, isn't it? I mean, I think most
it is.
of the time it's the little things. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast recently. It's like, you know, you look back over your martial arts career, and you look at some of the students, and it might only take one thing that you maybe say to one student at a time where they particularly need it, because you don't know what's going on in their life outside of the dojo.
No, exactly.
You know, they could have been having a really bad time at work. They could have had a marriage breakup. They could have an illness. They could have parents or, you know, problems in the family. You just don't know what's going on, and they come to your dojo for a release of that, don't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be a case of, you know what, that was great work, or, you know, keep it up, or, you know, that was, you know, great techniques tonight. You know, look forward to seeing you next week, and sometimes that's all it needs to spur somebody on. I think to get them over to the next hurdle. That's true.
Yeah. And that's it. And then also being a sort of like a, you know, being a, you know, like you guys probably, you know, you take a phone call on a Sunday evening, you know, if somebody's having sort of like marital problems, you know, going through a divorce and wants to talk to somebody.
Yeah. That's normally me.
Yeah. But I mean, that's, you know,
you're right. Yeah,
that's the thing. You know, you got, you know,
only three times, Jackie.
So yeah. So it's not only just that, you know, it's not only just those, you know, 3 or 4 hours that you spend with a person during the week, you know, training. It's the time that, you know, outside of that as well, where you know you are, you know, a kind voice, if you like, or somebody listening, an ear to listen to, kind of thing at the end of the phone, you know, during the week, you know. And it's I mean, it's a privilege in essence as well. Yeah. You know,
it's a privileged position to be in, isn't it?
Position. Yeah, for sure. You know, and they you know the students ask very, very little from me, and you know, but I like to think that they get a lot back in terms of having that person there that is willing to listen and willing to talk to them.
Okay, then. So we're going to wrap up now. We're coming up to the last question, sure. John.
Yep.
And I always get in trouble for asking this, so I'm going to hand it over to Gavin, so I don't get told off in about an hour's time. Over to you, Gav.
Okay, John. So I suppose, given what you've known now and the journey you've been on and everything else, what would you say to a younger self?
What would I say to a younger self? Oh, that's a good question. And I have no regrets, and just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. You know, it's you know, we can, you know, look at, you're driving, it's a you know, cliche, you drive your car, you look through the windscreen, you know, don't look through the rear view mirror, because the rear view mirror, that's the past. Yeah. You know, and really just focus on the future. And no matter how much trouble you get yourself into, no matter sort of like all the problems that you might come upon your shoulder, whether it be family orientated, work orientated, always look forward with a positive attitude, you know. Yeah. Because no matter how bad you feel that you are being dealt in terms of cards, somebody's always going to have a worse hand than you.
Yeah. Spoken like a true martial artist, that.
Yeah, thanks. John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. I feel like we could sit and chat forever.
Sure. On Zoom,
yeah. Unfortunately, we've got to call it a day. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And keep safe.
And you, take care.
Thanks, John. And hopefully our roads will cross one day.
For sure. Yeah, it'd be good.
You know, you never know. So
sounds good.
All right. Cheers, John. Take care.
Right. Thanks a lot, Gav. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Ta-da.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.